And both these teams, I think, have shown some inconsistency, but we'll have to see if they could really reach perfection after this match. Going for the Tristana ban straight up, Samsung did. They definitely caught that game because Deft was fantastic on that champion.
Yeah, not just Deft on the Tristana, but also taking away Mata's Thresh as well. So already lots of targeted bans coming out on the blue side, as we're wont to see. Also taking away that Galio that is quite strong. And we were talking about Haru coming in here instead of Ambition on the blue side for game number 1 against KT. It makes sense. You know, you want to make sure that you get someone who can play Elise when you are on the blue side, as Ambition doesn't really play it. But as you guys can see, KT did ban it out there for their 3rd ban.
And an early Callista pick for Ruler. I believe I really like the point you made about Haru because they have been somewhat easing him into their summer split. He featured in the last match against MVP and the one before that against BBQ. And if you just look at the totals, Ambition has played about 30 games this split, whereas Haru only played 4, but the Elise so huge.
And look at that, Illusion very early on, and that is just really cool. A big flex pick to start already. I mean, we could see that in mid lane, we could see that on top, maybe even in the AD carry position, but it's all going to be a mystery to start off. And he goes with the Nunu too. We've been seeing this, you know, a couple of times over in LCS. Guys, if you're joining us later, this is going to be on 7.14, so we were expecting a lot of changes to come into this one. And there's another one, Maokai back into the meta. These big tanks that are just kind of point and click and have these big game-changing ultimates are coming back in.
Longzu Khan, who will be playing later on tonight, said this about the 7.14 patch, and he said, it looks like it's more favorable towards tanks, especially when you look at Bramble Vest and all the other changes, and it looks like the rest of the LCK agrees. And Crown on that Cassiopeia, he had a fantastic 2-game series back-to-back against BBQ. I'm not surprised to see him pick that up, as he's been the real somewhat question for Samsung, right? Domestically, a lot of doubts over Crown, especially when you compare that to the incredible spring split he had.
Yeah, I think he was the big MVP of Spring Split. In fact, he had the most MVP points, so definitely coming through. But Cassiopeia, one of his big picks nowadays. He's been practicing it a ton. He had a fantastic series against BBQ, as you were talking about. And another thing is it's great against tanks. So if you're going up against a tank meta, it's definitely good for bringing them down early, especially before they can build those adaptive helms. We're getting a nice little champion spotlight of Nunu, if you guys didn't know what this champion does.
And Talia for Pawn makes it so that Lucian's probably not going in the mid lane. I'm still really curious to see if it's going to be Smeb or Deft playing that Lucian. Most likely Deft, though, because Deft has such an incredible champion pool.
Yeah, Deft has played a lot of different champions in here. I mean, he's been playing that Tristana, the Kog'Maw, what else? Some Varus, Callista, obviously, Caitlyn when it's available, never available anymore. But so speaking about other AD carries, Ruler going to be playing Callista for the first time tonight, so picking that one up in a big matchup up against KT.
That's right. He hasn't played Callista yet in the tournament, but that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to play it, right? He has been not spamming it, but he has been trying it out in solo queue, and I'm very excited to see what he could do against the Lucian, I'm assuming here, but the Lucian of Deft. The rest of the band's also targeting the top lane. Cuvée, not a Rumble player, at least this summer split, and I'm not surprised to see it banned, but a Janna for Mata as well.
Yeah, the Janna is really interesting. We saw it actually in 7-13 as well, out of MVP, I believe it was, up against Samsung themselves. So it's definitely one of these picks that just offers some of the best disengaged in the game. It offers a pretty ridiculous shield, the Monsoon, obviously, to push everybody out of the way. It's very anti-engage, and that's kind of the name of the game of 7-14
Haru's got the Rengar. Haru's got the Rengar for himself, and it's kind of a throwback to spring, but...
Yeah, this is getting pretty intense, as we still don't really know where that Maokai is going to go. It looks like it will go up into top, as Haru will be playing the Rengar.
And the first thing that comes to mind when I see the Rengar, probably because of the Duskblade of Drakthar changes, I'm assuming, but Haru has been fantastic on that champion in spring, so no surprise to see him pick it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were talking about... We don't have any time to make our points because these picks, They're all over the place.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off, but looks like Smeb will be on the Trundle up in top lane. Don't think it will be a Janna Trundle lane. But yeah, another pick that is fantastic against big tanks, right? You take away their tankiness as Trundle and is a very nice split pusher that Maokai is obviously going to have a lot of trouble dealing with.
So much going on in this picks and bans alone. We have Maokai, we have Rengar coming back, Ruler's first Kalista, we have a Trundle top, a Lucian for Deft, a Nunu. These players definitely showing us that it is indeed 7.14 and they can't wait to take advantage of it.
This is going to be sick. I mean, this is just a totally different game of League of Legends. Like, there's so many new picks that are coming in that are actually meta, and I was very excited to see what, you know, Korea was going to bring into this patch, because obviously we can look at NA, we can look at EU, LCS, and we can get kind of an idea, but then it doesn't define the Korean meta just yet. We have to see what they want to go for in terms of picks.
So going over the composition for Samsung, we have Maokai, Rengar, Cassiopeia, Kalista, and Zyra. For JJ, that always signature pick for him. He's always been fantastic on that Zyra, whereas KT going with Trundle, Nunu, Talia, Lucian, and Janna.
Definitely something that looks like a troll composition. We already do have one troll in the lineup, so Smeb bringing in a new pick. He had two of his big picks taken away, the Rumble, the Shen, and he's like, hey, tonight, I guess, is the night where I got to bring in something new. So definitely going to be an exciting one, guys. Get out there and tell everybody that this is going on. We got Samsung versus KT, game number 1, starting now. Samsung versus KT, game number 1. It's on patch 7.14, as you can see in the bottom left, and everything has changed. We were talking about Haru coming in for potentially that Elise pick, but it was banned out as we expected, and you were talking a bit about his Rengar play in spring, and I think you're kind of onto something there with the Drakthar changes, that item.
It has to be that, right? I mean, when we just look at the jungle, you know, the champion pools and everything, especially because after their match against Afrika Freaks, Sports said, we believe Elise is a top tier champion. It's a tier 1 champion. Her ganks are so devastating. When I first saw that they put in Haru for the first match, I thought, you know, they're probably really, you know, aware of the Elise as well. They want to take it back, but the Rengar just changes everything, and I can't help but think it has to be the Drakthar. There's no other way.
Yeah, it does make sense for the Rengar, and the Rengar makes sense for Haru, so kind of getting our questions answered here. Crown is eating so much damage right from the get-go, but he is Cassiopeia at level 1 with the potion, the corrupting potion, so definitely is going to be just fine.
Also some little early aggression in the bottom lane. Core JJ very smartly hiding himself in that upper bush so that he gets some free damage on Tamada as they make their way down.
We're just seeing Crown dealing with this up here, and this definitely looks like something from like another universe of League of Legends. Trundle versus Maokai up in top lane. But this is actually meta, I suppose. We haven't seen too much Trundle across, you know, in other regions as far as I know, but definitely Smeb bringing in this pick. I thought it definitely would become a bit more meta with the tanks becoming more strong, and obviously Trundle getting some small buffs. He can now crunch on some turrets.
Brox Tiger Shy most recently played him, although probably not the game you want to point towards if you want to show off Trundle's skill set. But also I'm really interested in what Score's going to do with this Nunu. When you just look at a Nunu, you just expect such a passive game. He's probably going to buff the AD carry later on, but still he could farm really well and already going into the enemy jungle.
Yeah, that's another thing that Nunu is great about. He loves to counter jungle, and another thing that he does very well is actually securing objectives with, you know, his consume. He loves to just chomp down on the big objectives, and I feel like that's pretty nice when you're going up against a Kalista, which is another one of these picks that definitely is fantastic at taking objectives. It allows KT an opportunity later on in the game to challenge Kalista's Rend.
That's a good point. And Nunu already taking away the Gromp from Haru. I believe he caught a glimpse of him as he just moved down to the mid lane Also helps when Pawn is pushing so heavily. He's somewhat playing rather risky with his health bar so low, but that's what you have to do when you want your, Nunu to go in there and counter jungle and get vision, take things away from the Rengar as well.
Yeah, for sure. Already putting down a ton of wards up on the top side is Score, so really trying to control this jungle as the Nunu. Looks like Pawn is finally going to go back. Not going to stick around. Just going to chill for now. And you can see that Haru actually went back and bought this control ward, so looking to deny some of this vision and potentially go for a bit of counter jungling himself.
I can't help but think, but Score is so comfortable right now. He put that ward in just now, and they know where Haru is. Again, he saw the trinket ward going down, so they know that Haru is in the top side, but there's nothing for him. There's nothing for that kitty to eat.
And he's going to stick around mid right now, actually. Just waiting. He did put down that control ward earlier on. This would be a nice start, but Pawn, he does have his cleanse and his flash. Would be down to Pawn getting over-aggressive and sticking into Miasma for them to really secure a kill. So.
Exactly.
Gonna get another ward denied here. And Haru, I mean, we were talking about it before, there's not much for him to do right now. He's still looking for that kill. Finally, he's gonna rotate out of that lane. Meanwhile, Score was just sitting up in top lane, kind of looking for a gank to help out against Kive, but nothing really happened.
Already with the control ward of his own and some extra vision so that he could keep track of this Rengar at all times, I can't help but feel like Score knows exactly what he's doing with this Nunu. And I know it's a pretty obvious statement though, because it is Samsung versus KT, right? The preparations that went into this match, as these teams are both 2 and 3 right now, must be intense.
Okay, trying to punish this engage. Score, he's not really that tanky just yet. Will be forced to flash this wall to get out of harm's way.
Decisive flash, and I still like this for KT because they did get to mess with the Raptors. They did get to put in that deep ward, so nothing really changes. They know exactly where Rengar is. I mean, Score did blow his flash, but things should be okay from here, I believe.
Ooh, Crown, he's getting a little bit frisky there, getting knocked actually into the turret. Look at how low he is right now. He's popping those stacks of his corrupting potion, but still with his flash, his Pawn. Thankfully, he doesn't have too much mana, so he can't really make a play happen. Crown is going to stick around.
We mentioned this briefly in the picks and bans, but there has been a lot of, domestic doubts over Crown's form, if I may say so. His inconsistency, especially when compared to Spring, because just looking at his most recent series against MVP, it just wasn't a good day for Crown. He just didn't look like anything like the Samsung mid laner we know, and I think if we were to just pick the most obvious, defeat condition for Samsung, it would have to be Crown's form.
Yeah, definitely look towards him. I mean, Samsung hasn't been looking strong in general as a team. Easy to say after they did lose to MVP, one of the lowest ranked teams in LCK currently. Oh, we got a fight going on. Crown, he's going for it. He's got a flash forward. There's the first blood. He actually makes it happen, and so much for him. He gets a solo kill in the mid lane.
It's that Cassiopeia against DBQ. I'm really glad he picked it up, and I think that's going to be his key to, bringing himself back, proving to the world that, I'm still Crown. Don't sleep on my Spring Split because I could bring it back anytime.
Yeah. Form is temporary, class is permanent. Yeah. Said by a very famous StarCraft 2 player, actually, back in the day. But definitely very relevant, as Crown seems to have found comfort on this Cassiopeia. We'll see if maybe it gets banned out as KT enters blue side for game 2. Wouldn't be too out of this world.
That solo kill was actually huge for this game, especially because he got it with a tier and a catalyst. That's going to relieve so much pressure from the mid lane, and I think that's why Pawn is opting to perhaps go into the bottom lane. He wants to make something happen with this roams, but again, Haru this time on top of everything that's going on in this bottom side, and Samsung might be able to get a lot of dragon control off of this.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do. They definitely still going up against this Nunu, so they have to be careful. It is a Mountain Drake to start, which is going to be really nice for both of these teams. They can secure objectives really easily already, but having that Mountain Drake will make it even easier. So it will be pretty nice to see who can pick that up. It's pretty cool to see Cuvée going on to Maokai, by the way. We were talking about this before the games. He's played so much Kled and so much Camille. He loves these split-pushing top laners, but tonight he says, no, Maokai's too strong. I got to do what's best for my team, and he takes one for the team, literally, by picking up the Maokai. Not the most fun top laner, or interesting, perhaps. I mean, he's kind of just a point-and-click engager, and his strength is back from what he had in spring when Maokai was basically the main pick we always used to see in the top lane. And it's cool to see him back.
That's right, and when we checked this morning, we did see him playing Rumble, playing Maokai and solo queue, but you know, this was Korea, so I never expected him to actually bring it out. Maokai also being played by a lot of jungle players as well in the jungle position, but KT's Score going for early Mountain Drake.
Yeah, the Nunu can do that extremely fast, but you can see the immediate rotation here out of the side of Samsung, just threatening. Immediately, the bot lane moves up towards the Mountain Drake, and Haru just sprints towards that Drake and says, no, you can't take that. So.
And Score backs off. For a moment, I really liked the angles for KT because I felt like Pawn might just put down the wall and Nunu might be able to secure the dragon, but not enough damage, I suppose, and their bottom lane was getting pushed in.
Yeah, Smeb, he's been pretty consistent coming in here and placing that ward, trying to spot Haru where he can. That's actually 2 wards deep in the blue side jungle. So we'll have a lot of information about where he can potentially be. And as you can see, Haru is actually down towards the Krugs right now, so not heading up top at all.
I think KT has somewhat of, I think they regained somewhat of a read on where Haru is and Haru's position, because that solo kill in the mid lane did so much in terms of just kind of popping that pressure balloon that KT had been pressing down onto Samsung. You can see by the way he played too, Score putting down a control ward right next to his blue buff and somewhat, studiously farming his Gromp, but now he's out there. He knows where Haru is, and he's going to take this Rift Herald.
Yeah, I mean, this was a team effort. They're playing around their Nunus so well. They're trying to get that deep vision around the objectives and then go for the objectives. And just kind of the 1-2 punch, get vision and then go straight for the Rift Herald. You can see Haru was kind of just out in the lane, down towards there, and now he's moved towards mid, so they're looking for the solo kill. The miasma is not going to hit, but the flash is down. Nunu's here, but the damage is still there. Haru, he's going to flash away, and it doesn't look like Score can pick up the kill, so a nice setup by Samsung to get that kill under the turret.
Samsung Galaxy repaying the Rift Herald with the kill of their own, and both these teams showing such high League of Legends play, transitioning that into a Mountain Drake immediately. I was so impressed with the way KT somewhat restored their vision line, restored the information they had to take that Rift Herald for free, but then Samsung says, no, we're not going to let you just take that. We're going to invest maybe a little bit risky, but invest our ultimates in getting that kill into the mid lane and take this Mountain Drake for ourselves.
That's really fantastic what they were able to set up. Score had no opportunity to even challenge that without the mid laner of Pawn, no wall, and no damage. So we're getting a replay here of how exactly he went down. This is the power of Rengar. He's back. You guys haven't seen him in a while, and they did that right before Pawn's flash got up. If he was able to flash back towards Nunu and then Nunu just channel his ult, that would have been a much harder kill to pull off and probably wouldn't have gone through. So really good timing as well by Samsung.
We're reaching about 13 minutes into the game, and the story of this game is so directly opposite of what I really expected to happen. Samsung really going for the aggressive Rengar, using the tools they have at their disposal to dive the mid laner, and Pawn, 2 deaths are ready. He's not having a good game, whereas Crown is getting ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were talking about Crown having a little bit of trouble nowadays, but historically Pawn has also had a bit of trouble, has been inconsistent at times, and I think it's showing a bit here in this game. Cuvée, he's trying to stop this tower, but he's now going 1v3. Will flash away, and even the pillar will not get him back in there, so at least KT able to use that Rift Herald and pick up the first blood turret in the top lane.
For a moment there, I thought Cuvée made a mistake by underestimating the Rift Herald damage, but you could tell that the decision to stay there in front of 3 members was because Crown's Cassiopeia was moving up, and KT knew as well they get out of there immediately.
because of that big rotation up into the top side, already with the pushing advantage in this lane, it looks like Samsung wants to make a play towards this bottom lane turret, getting it extremely low, but not quite able to kill it just yet. And if you'll notice, Crown and Haru making a rotation over here. There's not too much vision, but it seems like they know where the Samsung players are.
They have to. They're not seeing anything on the left side of the map, and really, why would Samsung go back there? So it's kind of a common sense decision, I feel. KT with the right read. They decide to back off, give up the outer bottom lane turret. But again, this game going such a different decision as I expected it to.
Yeah. Crown really having a fantastic start on the Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia, one of these later game picks that can be extremely scary. I was talking about objective control, and I talked mainly about Kalista, but you think about blue buff Cassiopeia with a Mountain Drake, she's just going to be shredding through those objectives. It's going to be pretty ridiculous. But just having that damage as well, this Taliyah is going to be relatively absent in terms of damage for her team, so they're going to be relying mainly on Deft. And basically, the rest of their team is going to be just trying to protect him because Nunu doesn't really have damage. Smeb, he's going to be split pushing. I mean, it's a Trundle. He's not going to be joining these fights all too much. And so, definitely worried about the damage side here for KT. Hold that thought, though, as looks like CoreJJ just being a little bit funny there. Although the wall is coming out, they're going for CoreJJ. He just flashes and gets out to safety.
Looked like they wanted a bit more, but that's the end of that engage or skirmish, I suppose. But I like what you said about, the focus on Deft. Janna already has the Ardent Sensor. They have the Nunu, so, if Deft ever wanted a game where it could really take over, these are the conditions, right? But I'm just wondering if they could ever make it to that point because this is such a fast-paced game right now.
Okay, we got another dive coming down the route onto Score. He's pretty tanky already. Look at how much magic resist he's picked up with the Merc Treads and then all magic mantles. So definitely trying to stay alive against the damage of this Cassiopeia and the Zyra.
Samsung Galaxy using their early damage, the threat of just killing people off using the Rengar in the jungle to get these early turrets. They already got the bottom outer and they're threatening the mid outer as well. And that longsword probably turning into a Duskblade. I really want to see it. I really want to see it in action for Haru's Rengar as well because Haru's been so crucial into making all this early, advantage happen for Samsung so far.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see it coming through. Definitely one of the stronger items, and when you're going up against a Nunu who's always trying to control objectives and control vision around the map, it's also very good to clear out that vision with that kind of item. So definitely fits Haru's game plan this time against this Nunu.
And as a support player, I'm actually kind of embarrassed I missed this, but Mata, no Sightstone yet. He went straight into that sensor. You could tell he really wants Deft to take over right now.
Yeah, I mean, it does mean that they're lacking some vision, especially around the bottom side, but outside of that, as you said, just they're putting all their eggs in one basket, basically. Can Deft do enough damage in these team fights? And they've got Smeb as kind of like the secondary objective. Can he push hard enough to really divert the attention of Samsung? Because you can see Cuvée, he's not really staying in lane. He's only going back there to clear out the creeps, and eventually, once this Trundle gets kind of out of hand, he's going to be split pushing like mad. So something to worry about for sure for Samsung.
Now Mata picks up the Sightstone. I do have to say it's not a full solo queue mentality decision, I feel, because they do have the Nunu who could provide additional damage. But the wall coming down again, and is anything gonna happen? Not yet.
Oh,
Deft gets picked.
Okay, Deft, that's the one person, right? They caught him, but he does get out in time, just barely, as the follow-up wasn't quite there. Crown wasn't in position to do enough damage just yet, so.
He was all right. He had the Janna shield, and Mata held on to his Monsoon. Unless there was a, total lapse of mind, I feel like Deft could have been able to make it out regardless. And KT looking like they want to try for this Mountain Drake now, but they are giving up the top lane turret.
Yeah, you can see Ruler, he's just recalling. CoreJJ is recalling too. Core He doesn't have any summoners, and he doesn't have his ultimate ability anymore. They blew it all on Deft, who only blew his heal and still has his flash. So they don't feel comfortable in taking that team fight just yet. It's kind of an interesting decision. I feel like, you know, especially when you're going up against this Nunu and Pawn is so underfed, it might be a good idea to take that kind of fight, but I suppose they're just waiting for later on in the game. They're just comfortable giving away that Mountain Drake for more gold on their side.
I think it really stays true to their domestic reputation. Samsung known as the by-the-book team, the no-nonsense team. We just play good, fundamental League of Legends, and when you're in that position where the Zyra doesn't have an ultimate, the Rengar doesn't have an ultimate, but your Maokai in the top lane, he could take that free turret. So Samsung says, okay, you could have a Mountain Drake. We'll just take the free turret and see what happens next time.
It's very good for their position in this map as well, because they've taken out all the tier 1 turrets. They've pushed that in. They should be able to get a lot of vision around all the sides of the Rift, especially around Baron, as it is about to spawn. You can see a couple of control wards around there already.
Now Samsung looking like they want to be in position for the spawning Baron. Not necessarily take it, but they do want the early vision because the Mountain Drake just went down. There's not a lot of reason to be in the bottom lane right now. And, you know, just looking at this game 20 minutes in, there's only been 2 kills, but the pace, again, has been extremely quick. It feels like so many things have happened so far.
Yeah, it's definitely Samsung trying to use their early lead to get as many picks as possible and get as far ahead as possible to snowball their later game damage. But they definitely have an opportunity to go for this Baron. You were talking about the Mountain Drake, and we've been talking about, you know, objective taking for both of these compositions all game. So Ruler getting extremely low, though, as he tanks the majority of that Baron, and it looks like they will not have an opportunity to do this, as the teleport was coming in the wall as well. So not able to pick up that Baron, and at the same time, Smeb gets the bottom turret.
I was about to say, Ruler started the Baron. He got tapped about 3 times, lost almost all his health, and that was just very questionable, but good decision in backing off, and we'll see what else they can make happen as they're clearing more vision. So Samsung seems invested in this Baron, but this time Smeb split pushing the bottom lane. He might be able to take it down to half health. And
Trundle is just so annoying for Maokai. I mean, what do you do as Maokai?
Is he gonna take
what do you, what do you do against this? Smeb, he's tanky enough that it doesn't matter. And then as Trundle, you can just steal the tankiness and say, hey, okay, you want to fight? Let's go. 1v1, Smeb is going to crush Cuvée, and he's so far ahead as well. So here we go. They're going to try to start this Baron once again, as KT isn't really in position, and they do have a ton of damage. Blue buff for the crown. The teleport coming in. Smeb also not having teleport. This is a very fantastic time to do it. There it goes. The spike coming in, actually. Not even the Ren. So Score trying to flash in and go for an ult. Not sure about that one as he gets taken out, but here's Deft able to take out one in the back. Gets Scored in as well. Down goes Ruler, and now they're all on the run. So Samsung able to take this Baron, but Deft coming in from behind. Cuvée just trying to get out of here and just hit that plant, but he can't do it. He is going to eventually go down. He's extremely tanky, but Deft able to pick up the kill. So at least KT able to pick up 3 on their way out.
Well, that fight went along with the game plan of KT, as Deft is able to pick up 2 kills for himself. I was a little bit skeptical when they went for the Baron because Haru...
Okay, goodbye. Pawn stayed a little bit too long, forgetting that he's playing against the Rengar.
Both teams pedal to the metal. Haru picks up the kill, and KT picks up the outer mid lane turret. And the point I wanted to make about the Baron was, Haru, he's going for all this damage. There's the Dust Blade, by the way, but he wasn't tanky enough to secure the Baron, and I feel like that played such a crucial part in this replay we're about to see. Haru chunked out so hard that he just wants to stay out of this.
That Nunu play, though, was just pretty hilarious. It did slow everybody, and he is kind of just like Suicide Nunu. And yeah, did net them 3 kills. It's pretty funny to see Cuvée struggling to hit this plant, but eventually does go down here. But yeah, Samsung, they keep the Baron buff, and they will have a pretty formidable push going with this one. They're going to force Trundle to stick around. He can't really be split pushing during this time period. And in fact, actually, Pawn is bottom lane right now, so just pushing that one out. Haru, though, yeah, he gets a little bit caught out, but nice support there from goo.gl.
I think my favorite part about this game so far is that the strengths and weaknesses of these champions and these compositions are so well defined. Haru can't take the Baron very well, but he goes back, he runs straight back after the teamfight had ended and picks up a kill for himself, you know, using that burst damage and the Dust Blade. And as we head to the late game, I guess it's obvious to say that the focus is on Def, but it looks like Cuvée wants to engage here.
Cuvée, he's not alone. He does have goo.gl as well as Ruler coming from the right side, as well as Crown, actually. But the wall is going to come down. They're going to counter-engage. Look at him get bursted. Score like he doesn't even exist. Look at Pawn! He just disappears again! Haru, that's the second time he's done that. What a play. And now the rest of KT, they don't have their Nunu, who's kind of just useless. So just basically a buff bot for Deft at this point. But then once they get Pawn, it's lights out. They have to disengage.
Mata playing that Janna as well is such an easy target for that Rengar assassination. Doesn't have to be, you know, Pawn every time. You lose one piece and Deft is not as effective as KT hopes him to be. Samsung takes the inner mid lane turret and looks like they're about to threaten the inhibitor as well.
Yeah, they should be able to get at least this turret. Pawn still 5 seconds on him. Doesn't look like they'll commit any further, though. They're pushing this lead as much as possible. They're going to use the last of that Baron buff to pick up some more turrets and some more gold. And now they'll get that consolation prize as well of just the Cloud Dig. But let's take another look at this fight.
Cuvée again and again, twisted advance into the middle of the team, and I think it's so important to recognize. Well, first of all, let's watch Pawn get deleted. But there's so many new champions, new picks that we haven't seen in this game that, you know, when I watch Cuvée going in like that, a part of me just thinks, well, that's just reckless. But then he doesn't die. He stays alive through everything, and it just somewhat straightforwardly turns into a great engage for Samsung.
Yeah, I mean, it's the combination as well of the Maokai and the Zyra. If you can just land your ult or any of your CC that you have in your kit, it's such an easy follow-up for Zyra to just make you stand still for the majority of the fight until you die. Not to mention, you know, a lot of other picks. You got Fate's Call, you got even the Cassiopeia ultimate, if you can land it. So lots of burst damage and lots of engage potential and CC out of the side of Samsung, and they're doing it quite well. I love how Cuvée was just brave in the face of danger and allowed that to happen.
Great Nature's Grasp as well, the Maokai ultimate getting almost everybody. I feel like KT was somewhat startled by that as well. Maokai keeps coming in, and maybe they thought they could take him. Haru forced to use the Rengar ultimate to run away.
Yeah, the wall did come down and force him to flash as well, so that means that he won't have that crazy assassin potential unless Pawn is around a brush or, you know, around an ulting Rengar, but they're going to have to wait a little bit for those cooldowns to come up for that. And man, Haru, he's really proving that what we were talking about before was correct. Like, this guy, you know, he has that Elise potential compared to the ambition, but I think they definitely had this Rengar pick planned, and man, he's 3-0, and he is fed as hell. Any of these squishy targets could die immediately in just one combo from this Rengar, and you always have to respect that.
Samsung now brute forcing their way into the mid lane inhibitor as well. Again, I think it's a move after they saw how extended Smeb was pushing that bottom lane. I'm not sure if they could actually take it, though. Maybe Cuvée might just twisted advance again and force the fight. Ruler actually opting to, you know, trade some blows with Deft. And looks like this inhibitor might go down.
It's just a couple of auto attacks away.
It's so close, yeah.
You can see how low Deft is, too. It's kind of just a desperate hold. They're just waiting, and okay, there you go. QSS is burned, but this is going to buy so much time to take out the inhibitor, and that's what Samsung wants. They don't necessarily want the fight, but, I mean, we saw this in spring. It's been kind of the theme of 2017 is these giant tanks. When you push on inhibitors, you just go deep. and then you go for it. And oh boy, KT not really respecting this, and they're going to go straight for Smeb here. There comes the Stranglethorns coming out into all that CC. He is extremely tanky, and he's stealing Maokai's tankiness. Oh. He doesn't die! What the hell? And now they're going to turn this off to Cuvée, who's also extremely tanky and gets away. League of Tanks, boys, we're here. It's 2017 summer, patch 7.14. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Weaver's Wall trying to cut off the retreat, but Samsung not too bothered by it. We're seeing everything in this game. We're seeing, you know, high amounts of burst damage to Rengar, the Dustblade. We're seeing Maokai not dying.
Just like, doing Maokai things.
It's as if every prediction about 7.14 just came true.
Yeah.
And turned into this, you know, wonky game as Samsung goes back to the Baron.
Look at how fast they take this out. I mean, Crown is just ripping this Baron apart. Cuvée, he's all alone. He's distracting the rest of the team. Even if he goes down, this is going to be fantastic for Samsung. And KT, they can't even chase him. So another Baron taken by Samsung, this time with 0 deaths. And I have to say, KT, kind of a bad position right now.
Great job by Cuvée marking Spore so that he can't even get close to the pit. You know, if we had a Defender of the Year award, he definitely deserves that one.
We get to see this again. Fortunately, no kills. Nice Fate's call into Root there. Good teamwork. And this, it's like, this doesn't make sense. How does he not die? All the shields, all the heals.
Now it's Cuvé's time to not die.
Yeah.
And there it is. Tank's not dying.
Yeah, just 7-14 things. So now with the Baron, Samsung, they will make another play down here towards the bottom lane. And I have to say, I haven't been really impressed by this Nunu pick. He was shut down very early by the team of Samsung. He wasn't able to take any objectives outside of the Rift Herald. And that just got them one turret. I mean, we've seen the effectiveness of Rift Herald. It's not a game-breaking objective. It's just a way to get ahead. But with the multiple mid-lane dives that Samsung had and taking that early Mountain Drake into controlling the Baron side before KT could even get over there has really just accelerated them towards this mid-game, towards getting that first Baron. And now this is kind of what you expect out of a late-game Nunu, not really doing all too much from behind. So Smeb, he's going to get shut down again here, but you can see that they're not going to commit to the kill because they know they can't kill him because it's Trundle.
I like the use of Rengar ultimate by Haru. He just pops it. He's not, I don't even think he wanted to go in the first place. He just wants to apply the pressure so that they get the free inhibitor. And they're about to back off, maybe pick up a dragon, but their sight's possibly on the top lane inhibitor as well, trying to make it 3 out of 3.
Well, they got 20 seconds until this Infernal Drake, so they'll pick that up first, as you were talking about. And it's weird. You were talking about Rengar and just using that ultimate to zone, and with the Maokai, this feels so much like spring, especially with this combination. It's uncanny. Obviously, you got a bunch of other picks in the mix, but definitely pretty cool to see the retro comp, if you will, from Samsung.
Infernal Drake goes over to Samsung, and now they have a 6.5-ish K gold lead. And like you said, I'm just so impressed by Haru here. You know, all I could think about was that Elise, and for him to bring me such a delightful surprise of Rengar and the Dustblade and making it look like spring, like you said, turning back the clock, and it almost makes you think, because Samsung has been using Haru in their previous 2 matches as well. What if they actually, like, they planned this all along? They saw 7.14, they read the Dustblade changes, and they said, you know, Haru, I think this is a good time for you to make your comeback. Go play your Rengar, go have fun.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the inconsistency of Ambition, falling to really strong jungles. When you're going up against Score, one of the strongest and most experienced jungles in LCK, I would actually trust Haru. It's funny to say, as Ambition himself is a veteran, but in this patch, in this time period, I would actually trust Haru personally. So look at that. They try to go for a pick, KT, but it doesn't work out. And meanwhile, you got that Maokai ultimate coming in. Pawn just loses half of his health. Haru gets out of there. Score, again, kind of just useless. Up in the front, not doing much. And KT just slowly falling one by one. Samsung, it looks like they're in a fantastic position to take game number 1. Core JJ not able to get that engaged, but it doesn't really matter as everybody on KT is so low. And it looks like in about 33 minutes, Samsung going to take the dominating game number 1 victory.
You could see the mid lane play and why they had to do it, but in the end, Samsung's so far ahead. It felt like these two teams had a very specific idea, very clear idea about what they wanted to do this first game of 7.14, and it was essentially just a battle of theory, and Samsung came out on top.
They definitely did. I feel like they had a much better draft. I think it was much easier for them, especially on the blue side. I'm very curious to see what KT will bring in terms of bans for blue side for Game 2, because you think about the Maokai, that's extremely scary. They didn't really have an option or any answer to the Maokai. But then you think about Rengar for Hari, you got to take away that pick, right? But what about the super comfort pick of Cassiopeia for Crown? And what about Core JJ and his Zyra? Not to mention a top-tier ADC in Kalista. Basically, every pick that Samsung brought in was extremely, oppressive for Samsung against KT, and they have a lot of thinking as they go into Game 2.
You know, this statement was basically true for whoever loses this first set, but I bet KT right now, they're really hoping that the break wasn't 15 minutes. They're probably hoping for about 15 hours, 15 days maybe.
Yeah, they need some more scrim time before they go into this one.
I mean, they're not even going to leave the booth. They're going into review right away, and let's take a look at some of the highlights from that game.
So Pawn, he just doesn't have any mana. He overstays and he just underestimates the amount of damage that Crown can do with the mana that he had left. Doesn't matter how low he is. And here they just pick on him again.
I think the Rengar damage, this was a real big, first surprise. I don't think KT expected that type of damage to come out of the Rengar, and after that, it was just a snowball.
Yeah, you could see Nunu trying to be relevant in 2017. We'll see if he makes his way back. I doubt it. Did help out in the fight, but I think this was just because Samsung went for kind of a risky Baron, a somewhat risky Baron. They had so much damage and objective taking potential, but at the same time, KT was right down their throats as the follow-up came in.
Deathwood is one moment there, but after that, it was the Samsung show again and again. I really would have liked to see the repeated twisted advances here, but at least we get this. Haru deleting Pawn.
Pawn actually ate the Nature's Grasp, the ultimate of Maokai, instead of Deft, and he walked in front of it. He ate it, and he's like, okay, I'll protect my ADC, but then he just got wrecked in the mid lane, so got to be careful about that kitty. He's stalking you from the jungle.
Well, again, I can't help but think it's the picks, right? We had about 5 or 6 totally new picks in the tournament, and these players, sometimes, they're professional players, but even they might get a little bit confused, maybe miscalculate, not, expect exactly what could happen. And this final team fight is, when you see Ruler flashing forward, you know it's over.
Well, here we go. Going to take a look at the result. I would have to agree with you. I think Samsung heavily won that pick ban phase, and it's going to look a lot different coming into game number 2. You'll see that Deft, he had a lot of damage. They were focusing around him. They were trying to make this, protect the Lucian comp work with the split pushing of Trundle and the support damage of Talia, but didn't really work out as they got too far behind with a couple of botched team fights.
Again, the philosophy I feel was true. It was solid. Deft's 22.1k damage. That's not just Deft. That's the Nunu and the Ardent Sensor from Janna coming in, but just Samsung with the better idea. Samsung with the better read, the better, theory coming into this game and how they wanted to approach it on this new patch. Of course, Crown having a great game on Cassiopeia as well. I think that makes it 3 games back-to-back. Well, discounting the MVP series, but
yeah.
Looks like
we'll
Cassiopeia.
Try to forget that series ever happened, but
Cassiopeia looking like one of these important picks for Crown.
Yeah, as I said, lots of picks to try to take away from Samsung going into game number 2. But before we go into game number 2, we will go to a quick commercial break. We'll see you then.